So I'm here with my friend Cliff, and he has a story to tell, and Duncan's sitting nearby. And Cliff, do I have permission to video this?
Absolutely,
Okay,
yes.
good. He had asked me to do this for him. So, okay, Cliff, you can begin.
Okay.
Uh huh.
Name of my story is Ruth the Shark Tooth Queen. Not, I think some of you have heard this before, but I think it's still a good story. It's not fair, my wife Sharon said to me. Sharon is a great advocate of justice. She believes that life should be fair, and she also hates to lose at anything. For pure competitiveness, pound for pound, my wife makes Michael Jordan look like Mr. Rogers. What, what she was upset about this time was that we had gone to Myrtle Beach for a big family reunion, and my sister in law, Ruth, the shark tooth queen, had already found a couple of fossil shark's teeth on the beach in the first day and a half, while Sharon had found none. Ruth, who has the eyes of an eagle, had found literally hundreds of fossil shark's teeth in the sand. She has jars full of shark's teeth, some of them over an inch long with serrations along one edge. Conversely, Sharon, even with the help of our daughter Katie and myself over the years, has accumulated the grand total of shark's teeth that you see on my card. It's not a very good picture, but it's accurate. That's years worth of shark's teeth. So these little ones are literally little like that. Now, that's really unfair, the idea that she's stuck with these. These were the words that were echoing in my brain as I went to sleep. In the middle of the night, it was like I got a revelation. God speaking to me on how to make all things right and fair. The next day, without anyone seeing me, I slipped off to downtown Myrtle Beach and I bought the prize winning 3-inch long fossil shark's tooth. Later that day, I asked Sharon if she would like to go for a walk. And when she said yes, I suggested that rather than walking along the edge of the water where the fossil shark's teeth are normally found, we walk along the high tide line where there was lots of debris that had washed up, and maybe we would get lucky looking for a shark's tooth. At about 3.5 to 3/4 of a mile down the beach, Sharon said, "Oh, let's just turn around. I'll never find a tooth. Let's go back to the condo." All of the family was gathering at Ruth's condo for dinner. I suggested that we just walk another 50, 100 yards down to a post in the ground. She agreed, and when she was ahead of me, just a little way, I reached into my pocket, found this handy. That is a shark's tooth. That's also about 30 some odd dollars back then. I reached into my pocket, took the baby out, and let it drop into the debris. When we turned around, I continued to walk behind Sharon as she scanned the beach, walking back and forth toward the condo. At the spot, I saw Sharon look down, then reach down, and she picked up the tooth. She turned and said, "Look at this! Look at this! I can't believe it!" And then she started jumping up and down and hollering, "Oh, I found it! It's a mammoth tooth! Wait till Ruth sees this!" And then she was off at warp speed toward the condo. At the condo, she couldn't wait for the elevator. She actually levitated 7 floors right up to Ruth's condo, where all the family was gathered. She burst through the door and screamed, "Look what I found! Look at what I found!" She ran across the room, gave the tooth to Ruth. The queen took one very long, hard look and then screamed, "It isn't fair! I have been looking for shark's teeth for over 30 years. And sure, I found a bunch of them, but they were all small, puny little teeth compared to this giant." Doubting Thomas, Ruth's husband and my older brother, sat there with his mouth wide open, looking like he had been struck by lightning. He couldn't believe that Ruth's title was being taken away, but he knew that Sharon wasn't taking it when she said she found the tooth on the beach. The next day, Doubting Thomas went into downtown Myrtle Beach, and he came back and said, "You will never believe how much they charge for a fossil's tooth. Size that. Over $20, he said. I said, "Wow, that's a lot. But I can believe it. That tooth is pretty incredible." For the rest of the week, Sharon basked in the glory and adoration of finding the tooth. All conversations ultimately came back to the tooth. Everyone in the family wished that they had been the lucky one and found the tooth. Sharon was so proud. She was stopping people on the beach and asking them if they wanted to see the prize tooth. But all good things must come to an end, and at the end of the week, we returned to Huntsville. When we got home, we unpacked the car, and following tradition, we started to put things away from the trip. Sharon was down in the kitchen. Katie, our daughter, was in her bedroom, and I was in the master bedroom. And as I started to unpack our suitcases, I knew eventually that I would have to tell the whole story. When I found the shark's tooth carefully wrapped in a soft cloth in Sharon's suitcase, I called Katie in from her bedroom and handed her the prize tooth. She said, "Oh, Dad, isn't it incredible that Mom found this fantastic tooth?" I said, "Yes, it is." And then I handed her a piece of paper, the cash register receipt for the tooth, which said one shark's tooth, $32.40, including tax. Katie looked at the receipt for quite a while, and then she said, "You didn't." I said, "I did." Katie said, "Mom's gonna be mad." I said, "I know, that's why you're here." And then Katie began to laugh, and I joined in. And we had this wonderful father-daughter time of pure, unadulterated joy. I wished it would go on forever. But then Sharon heard us laughing from down in the kitchen. And she came running up the bedroom to the bedroom and said, "All right, what's the big joke? I want to laugh too." I said, "That it really wasn't that funny." Katie and I had been looking at the shark's tooth, and I had handed her this piece of paper and then gave Sharon the cash register receipt. She stared at it a lot longer than Katie had. And then she said, "You didn't." I said, "I did." She then said, "How could you make me the laughing stock of the whole family?" I said, "I didn't do that. I made you the envy of the whole family. Everyone wished that they had been the one to find the tooth." Sharon is a good woman. She eventually calmed down. She then said, "Ruth is going to be upset." I said, "I know." And I went and composed a little poem about how Ruth had been the undisputed shark tooth queen for years and years, and then had just been overthrown by Sharon. But now the truth must come out that the humongous tooth discovery was really a practical joke, and only Ruth deserved to have the title shark-toothed queen. And I sent the poem to all of the family that had been at the beach. The first one to get the poem was my niece, Diane, Ruth's daughter, who called her mom and said she needed to go get Uncle Cliff's letter out of the mailbox as soon as possible. Ruth called me that night after I had come home from work. Have you ever noticed that some people seem to have royal blood in them, in their veins? You can see it in how they walk, in their regal bearing, how they talk and interact with others. I believe that Ruth is one of those people. When Ruth got on the phone, she said in a manner worthy of true royalty, of a real queen, Cliff, I have only one thing to say to you, and that is,